Hello everyone. In this video we are going to discuss how being psychic affects your health. Now, I think this video is important not just for psychics but also for family members of psychics, for anyone who goes to psychics. I think that this video is important for anyone who goes to psychics as well, because then you can understand and be grateful for the sacrifice that psychics make. Now, obviously, being psychic, like any other profession, has its pros and cons. Okay, one of the main pros of being psychic is the fact that you have access to information that other people do not have, who do not have these psychic abilities developed the way that you do. However, with everything comes a con, right? And the con, the negative of being psychic, is that being psychic can have physical effects on the physical body, can have health effects. So today, Archangel Raphael wanted me to share with you the different psychic abilities and how they can affect your health, and a little bit about how you can help this a little bit more, okay? So, to get started, we're going to start at the top of the head, right? So, the top of the head is the crown, and the crown is the one that receives messages for people who have what's called claircognizance. Claircognizance is the ability to just know information or receive information from the spirit world through your mind. And when you do have claircognizance, it is very likely that you will develop nervous system issues. That includes having a lot of headaches in the brain, having vagus nerve issues where you feel a lot of tension. You can develop also issues with your psoas muscle, issues with your stomach, because claircognizant is receiving a lot of information. And if it's not positive information, if you're receiving information that can be, even with some of the positive information, you can still have some of these effects, but mostly with the negative information being received from spirit, being claircognizant is a lot for somebody to handle. So you can develop mental health issues, but primarily the issues with claircognizance come in the nervous system. So anything that is attached to the brain as part of the nervous system can be affected by having the claircognizant gift, which is the ability of the gift of knowing. So you receive it through the crown, the gift of knowing. Okay, that includes not just the nervous system, but also things like the psoas muscle and the stomach. Okay, so one of the ways that you can help decrease the effects of being claircognizant is through meditation. Also, reducing the amount of time that you spend looking at a screen, receiving information through your eyes, or receiving information from your environment, grounding with nature. If you're a claircognizant person, you will find that when you are out in nature, you feel more safe, you feel more at peace. Excuse me. My channeling abilities today are a little bit clogged. So, when you are claircognizant, it is highly recommended that you do not overload your brain. So it's very important that because you are being overloaded by the spiritual world, it is very important that you don't overload your brain by reading too much or watching too much or receiving too much information too quickly. Samantha. So it's really, really important that when you are claircognizant, that you are not overloading your brain with too much information, too much thinking, okay? Especially if you're an air sign and you're claircognizant. Air signs have the tendency to be thinking all the time, thinking. So it's very important for you to take some time to clear your mind, okay? Clear the mind is what Archangel Raphael is recommending here. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next psychic ability, which is psychic sight. throat is clogged today, y'all. I need to work on my throat chakra today. Anyway, the next ability that can get clogged is your psychic sight, okay? Your psychic sight, clairvoyance, is the ability to see, okay? So the best way to, let me backtrack a little bit real quick to the crown, to the claircognizant. It is actually very easy to clear your mind if you learn how to breathe properly. Through breath, you are able to clear your mind and analyze thoughts and let them go. If you have issues clearing your mind, that means you need to learn how to do meditation activities and breathing activities. Okay, let me move on to clairvoyance. Clairvoyance, third eye. Clairvoyance is the ability to see, right? So it is here, but it also connects to the back of the head because it connects to your pineal gland, okay? So actually, people who are clairvoyant are receiving information not just through here, but they're actually also receiving information through their pineal gland, which is connected to the spiritual world, okay? And this is the ability to see things. Now, clairvoyant people are not just seeing things, they're also receiving downloads, usually from spirit. They're receiving telepathic information from spirit. A lot of the times in my mediumship work, the way that the spirits communicate with me is through my clairvoyance. Sometimes they do it through my claircognizance, but mostly through my clairvoyance. And so you're receiving these images, these flashes of images, okay? Okay, so you're gonna feel like usually like a headache here and a headache at the back of your head, right here, right above your spine. when your clairvoyant ability is overwhelmed. Okay. Let me clear my throat real quick. Okay. The reason my throat is clogged today, y'all, is because I was pissed off and I didn't voice my pissed offness yesterday enough. So now my throat is clogged. See what I'm saying? This is the effects of not dealing with certain situations. Okay, moving on. So having clairvoyant abilities can affect your eyes, but also your liver. Your liver is connected to the things that you see, the things that you absorb through the eyes and through the third eye. Because the third eye and the eyes are all connected. You may develop sight issues if there are certain things that you just don't want to see, or if you're repressing your psychic ability of seeing, you can develop sight issues. You can develop physical eye issues. So you might be somebody who develops issues where they would have to wear glasses or contacts or whatever, because your eyes are affected by the clairvoyance. If your clairvoyance is overwhelmed, the same way that claircognizance is helped is the same way that clairvoyance is helped. Clairvoyance is helped by resting the eyes, the physical eyes, so not exposing the eyes too much to like screens, to negative information. Taking the time to meditate and clear the mind can also help with clairvoyance exhaustion, okay? Also, being in rooms that are very low light is very good for clairvoyance to avoid clairvoyance exhaustion. So avoiding very bright lights is also very important. Or avoiding a lot of EMFs as well, because EMFs do affect the clairvoyant sight. Avoiding things like fluoride that they put in toothpaste, because that calcifies your pineal gland and can damage your clairvoyant abilities, okay? Or can block your clairvoyant abilities from being able to fully manifest. The next one that I want to discuss is clear smelling. A lot of people don't realize that this is a psychic ability. There are people who are able to smell things very, very, very intensely, and they have a very sensitive sense of smell, and they have the ability to smell spirit, not just the living, but also the dead. So they're able to kind of like, if you're ever like, oh my God, I'm smelling my grandmother's perfume and my grandmother's not here anymore, that's usually letting you, your clear smelling is letting you know that your grandmother's spirit is around you, okay? So usually for me, whenever my grandfather comes around, I smell cigarettes because my grandfather's head spirit smoked cigarettes. So I associate the smell of cigarettes with my grandfather because my grandfather's head spirit, who he worked with most of his life, smelled cigarettes, okay? So clear smelling is a thing. One of the great ways to clear the nose is with coffee beans. Smelling coffee beans is great for clearing the clear smelling, to reset the nose, okay? And because clear smelling, if you are a very sensitive smeller, which is clear smelling, you can develop lung issues, usually asthma, things like that, when you are someone who is very psychic in the smelling part of the clairs, okay? So you can develop lung issues, asthma, pretty much anything that has to do with smelling, sinusitis. Your sinuses might get clogged a lot. You might get deviated septums if you are a clear smeller, okay? You might develop issues like snoring. So like I said, it's very important to reset that sense, the sense of smell, making sure that you're clearing your sinuses. They have these like exercises where you like massage your sinuses to clear them. They also have, you can also, like I said, smell coffee beans, because coffee beans can help clear the sinuses. And obviously avoiding any triggers for your lungs. Avoiding any triggers for your lungs is highly recommended. Also, if you're a clear smeller, avoid dairy. Avoid dairy because anything that produces mucus will clog up your clear smelling ability and will also hurt your lungs, okay? So it's really, really important to... My throat today, y'all, is not happy. So let's move on to channeling, which is the issue I'm having today. So channeling is ruled by your throat. So your throat is responsible for channeling. Usually you receive information through your crown, and your voice box is the channel. It's the one that projects it out. So when you have issues with channeling, when you are overdoing your channeling, or when you're not speaking your truth, or when you're speaking out, or you're speaking too much when you really should be quiet, you can develop throat issues, issues inside the mouth, it's issues with your teeth, issues with your tongue, issues with your tonsils, issues with your thyroid. You know, some people get thyroid cancer because they never speak their truth. They always retain everything that they feel like saying or they receive from the divine. They don't channel it out. They don't say what they need to say. So when you clog that gift of channeling, it can be very detrimental to your health. If, for me right now, it's anger is stuck in my throat. That's the reason why. But I'm going to be working on that later today. It's all right. I'm human. I can get clogs as well. That's why I always recommend to always make sure you are taking the time to take care of yourself, okay? All right, so yes, so like I said, channeling. It's when you are a channel, you find that see? When you are a channel, you find that you naturally want to project your voice, and it's because you are a microphone for spirit. So it's very important to work on clearing the throat, doing exercises, meditations, like Transcosmo suggested, humming meditations can also help. Also, kind of the same way that you would train your voice for singing is the same way that you would train your voice for channeling, and it's the same way that you would kind of rest your voice when they tell you, don't speak for a few days. That's the same way that you would rest your throat chakra. Thanks, Nailene. I'll try that later. I did do a little bit of screaming earlier. Okay. The next psychic ability, which I love, which is one of my favorites to use, is psychometry. Psychometry is the ability to touch items and read them. Okay, so that usually comes through the hands. Psychometry, if you are overusing it or underusing it, you can develop issues with the heart. That's why you find people who have anxiety, because they need to always be touching something, because that's how they can release the anxiety from their heart chakra. So when you are experiencing anxiety, it's usually because you might have psychometry abilities, which is where you have the ability to touch things and read energy off of them. And if you're not touching anything, if you're kind of like keeping to yourself, then your psychometry ability might be clogged. And when your psychometry ability is clogged, then you're not receiving the energy you need from your environment to sustain your heart chakra, and vice versa. So you might be giving too much energy into your environment, but you're not getting any energy in return. So that's why people who have a lot of anxiety, it's very important to be touched, even though a lot of people who have anxiety are like, I don't want to be touched, but it's really important for people who do have anxiety to touch other things, to touch things, to touch people, because you need a outlet. Most of the time, your hands also have the ability to receive psychic information for those people who have psychometry abilities. So it's very, very important. I find that a lot of people who have psychometry, they tend to do palm reading, because when they touch a person's hand, they're able to kind of know things, receive information from the person's hands. And a lot of people think that they're reading the palm, but in reality, what they're doing is psychometry, is where they're receiving psychic intuitive information by touching your hand. Okay, so when you do have psychometry, to avoid having issues with your heart or anxiety, I highly recommend touching things, dispelling the energy into the environment by touching things that make you feel more comfortable. Also, people who have anxiety because they have psychometry abilities, I highly recommend things like tuning forks that tune the heart chakra. So this is a 136.110, the fourth chakra, the heart chakra, tuning fork. So I highly recommend getting a heart chakra tuning fork if you do have issues with anxiety. If you are someone who is a psychometrist, I myself have the ability of psychometry. I pretty much have developed most of these abilities because in the priesthood training that I received from my elders, I had to allow myself to develop most of these psychic abilities in order to do what I do to the best of my ability. Yes, so some people can play with the leaves of their plants. If you're a plant person, you'll see like making things with your hands will make your anxiety lessen if you are someone who has the psychic ability of psychometry. You can pet your animals as well. That's a great way to dispel energy and to dispel pent-up energy in the heart. Because the thing with people with psychometry is that they receive not just from their hands, but they also receive through the heart chakra. So if you're receiving information through the heart and you're like, oh my God, and you're anxious because you're receiving this information through the heart and then you're not dispelling it out through your hands, you're going to develop anxiety, because this is how, when you have your hands out in a T shape, is how you actually dispel energy out of the heart chakra. But if you get information and then you become anxious and you close up like this, you will retain the anxiety inside of you. So yes, doing things like pottery, making bread, creating anything physical, working with like a heart chakra tuning fork, touching things, even just touching an item like this that is like a texture that you like, can help with dispelling the negative energy that can be received through psychometry. Okay, so psychometry rules the hands and the heart chakra. So it can affect those areas. You can develop arthritis as well, anxiety, heart palpitations, heart conditions. Okay. You can go and touch a tree to ground yourself as well. Okay. Playing with like sensory toys is a great way to do it. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next one, which is a big one for a lot of people, and it's empathy. So empathy is ruled primarily by the heart and the solar plexus. So when you are an empath, you will experience issues if you do not take the time to ground yourself, to dispel the energy, to refresh your energy. If you do not take breaks from people as an empath, it is extremely important. I cannot iterate this enough, that you do not have personal relationships that make you the dumping ground. If you do empathy as your job, you need to have friends that are gonna be there for you, to be like people who understand that they can't just bring their issues to you all the time. That is gonna overload you, and it's gonna burn you out, and it's gonna make you resentful towards people. That is the reason why I do not befriend anyone who is my client, because I cannot be doing my job in appointments as well as in my personal life. I also do not have, I also do not interact with family members or friends who just want to vent to me all the time, because it overwhelms my system as an empath. It overwhelms my system. It takes me like 2-3 days to recover, right? If I get angry, it takes me 2-3 days to recover. If I get upset, it takes me 2-3 days to recover from that. And it's because I am an empath. I am extremely sensitive to energy. So that affects the solar plexus. It affects your digestive issue, your digestive tract. It affects your sacral chakra. It affects your root chakra. Okay, it affects your root chakra. It affects your ability to feel safe. It affects your sacral chakra, your sex organs. It affects your, this is the one that affects you the most, is empathy. So that's why when an empath is with a narcissist, it is the most dangerous situation for an empath to be in. Because when an empath is with a narcissist, narcissistic people love to suck your energy. They are energy vampires. And not only do they love to suck your energy, but they love to gaslight you about it. Okay. So people who are empaths, it is highly important that you do not watch the news, that you do not sit there and absorb all of this negative information from your environment, because you already are sensitive to the environment around you. The worst thing you can do is overload your system with even more negativity. Okay. So, because it can affect your heart, your digestive tract. You can develop digestive tract issues. You can develop what's called fascia blockages, where your fascia feels like it's strangling you. And usually it's because you're not discharging the information that you are getting from your environment enough. You are receiving so much negative information from your environment. You're receiving so much negative information from your telephone, or from your cell phone, or the TV, or people around you. And when you do that, you overwhelm your nervous system as an empath, and your nervous system starts to shut down. The fascia in your body starts to entangle itself. The different lower chakras will start to shut down, because you are overwhelming the nervous system. As an empath, you're receiving too much information. And as someone who is related to somebody who is an empath, you have to understand that an empath cannot be your therapist, okay? Even though they have the ability to empathize with you, you cannot do that to them. If you love someone who's an empath, you cannot force them to become your therapist. You need to get yourself a therapist if you have an empath that you lean on, okay? Because they cannot be receiving all that information all the time. The stress can kill them, literally kill them, okay? Because it shuts down their lower chakras. One thing that can help with that is Kundalini yoga, things like Qigong, practices like Qigong, yoga, Kundalini yoga. Sex actually helps with that as well. Masturbation helps with that as well. I'm just putting it out there for anybody who is an empath. Can help to dispel that energy. And obviously always grounding your energy, your feet into the ground. You don't have to necessarily go outside, but if you live on a first floor and your floor is natural, it's like a natural material, you can ground your energy into the floor. So when people start talking about themselves, should I just hit them with, wow, that's crazy, or just shut them down? You could. One of the things that I say is I usually, as an empath, I usually tend to want to be a problem solver. And one of the things I've had to learn to do is be, okay, what are you going to do about that to people in my personal life? Instead of taking on the responsibility of solving their problems myself, I might listen for a little bit to them. And then I will say, oh, cool. Like, what are you going to do about that? And kind of put it back on them to fix their issues, okay? Because one of the things with empathy is that when you do take on the problem, you subconsciously decide that you're going to have to solve it too. And when you don't feel like you can solve it, or when you're trying to help somebody solve a problem and they're not listening to you, you develop resentment, and then that resentment can kill your digestive tract, kills your stomach, your intestines, your liver, everything. Your cortisol, you can develop diabetes, okay? Because you're so sweet, is what my grandfather liked to say. You're so sweet, you develop diabetes. And it's really because your cortisol levels are spiked through the roof because you're not setting healthy boundaries. So as an empath, you really need to set healthy boundaries. People need to check with you, like, hey, are you in the right mindset to talk to me about this situation right now? If you are not, then people around you need to understand when you say no. So no is the empath's biggest friend. No. Having healthy boundaries, like, hey, I love you, but I can't talk to you about the world ending. I can't talk to you about politics. I cannot talk to you about religion. Those kinds of things. I cannot talk to you. I cannot gossip with you about your friends. I cannot listen to you for the 10th time complain about your boss. You need to get a therapist. Like, those are the kinds of boundaries that you need to set with your loved ones if you are an empath. I never contact anybody in the DMs. I'm constantly writing about that on my stories and on my wall. So that's something that I'm sorry that happened to you, but that's something that unfortunately I've tried to get Instagram to do something about it, and they're not really doing much about it. Exactly. So one of the best ways to put it back on somebody else as an empath, because most people that go to empaths is because they want to dump all their energy on you and then kind of make it your responsibility to figure out the problem and how to fix it. Okay? But it's not your problem to fix. If you want to be a listening ear, that's perfectly fine. But remember to always put it right back on the person for them to have the responsibility and the accountability to solve their own problems, okay? So that could look like, cool, what are you gonna do about that? And then sit back. Another thing that I have found helpful as an empath is to learn to put up a wall when you are talking to some people. Also, if you are talking to somebody, cover your heart chakra and your solar plexus with your hands. If you're talking to somebody who is very negative, someone who's always complaining about stuff, so that you don't absorb that information, cover your heart chakra and your solar plexus. So that's gonna look like right here. with your hands like this. So you want to cover those areas when you're, and your navel, your belly button, when you're dealing with somebody who is always complaining, or always has something to be upset about. Okay, if you really want to be that friend that, you know, sometimes crossing your arms can help as well as like a physical shield. But I do recommend doing this more, because when you cross your arm, you're just retaining the energy inside of your heart area. Okay, so I do recommend just covering the heart with an open palm. I suggest learning how to do Reiki on yourself, so that as that person is talking, you can just kind of like look at them like this, like you're listening, but really in the meantime be channeling Reiki energy into your body so that your body doesn't receive that impact. Okay. I do a lot of little secret things when I'm around certain people. And of course, you know, the other option for me is like, if people find it funny that they are affecting you this way, then that's when they get invited to my block party. And that means that they no longer have access to my information or my energy. So that includes clients or people in my personal life. If you find it funny to trigger my empathy abilities, then I will literally block you from working with me. So one of the best ways for empaths to empower themselves is to learn Reiki and to do Reiki on themselves, to learn shielding. To learn shielding if you're going to be dealing with these people, if they're like family members or something that you can't get rid of, to learn Qigong, to learn how to channel energy so that you can get excess positive energy from the universe, and to learn how to dispel energy as well. Qigong is a great practice. Very similar to Reiki, except that instead of just channeling energy into you, Qigong teaches you how to direct it. So it's a really great practice. You also have, so let's move on from empathy. We know that empathy can cause a lot of issues. So that's why I said best way to deal with it is learning Reiki, to learn how to shield yourself, to learn how to turn off your emotions by shielding as well. And also to learn to turn them off and turn them back on. And also to learn to Qigong, or simply to just ban that person from your life. So if there are family members you can't get rid of, or friends that you don't want to get rid of, then I would highly suggest learning Reiki, learning how to shield. Okay, usually a shield will last up to 4 hours. It's like when I used to work in retail, I would shield myself, and then every 4 hours I would have to take a break and for a few minutes and just recenter myself and then put my shield back up again. Okay, clairaudience. So I kind of skipped this one, but clairaudience is the main thing that I hear spirit a lot. So when you're clairaudient, you tend to hear like music in your head out of nowhere. You may hear voices. Clairaudience starts by hearing things in your head before you actually start hearing physical voices. Okay. So clairaudience is connected to the kidneys. So that which you hear will affect your kidneys, will affect your stress, and can give you adrenal fatigue. So if you're constantly hearing somebody complaining, blah, 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 I hate this, I hate that, blah, 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 blah. That is actually, if you have a parent that is always complaining about stuff, and you grew up around this parent, or you grow up listening to people gossip about other people, all these negative things that they're saying, if you're clairaudient, you will definitely develop, and you're not taking the time to dispel this energy or to block this energy, similar to empathy, being careful what you listen to. So a lot of clairaudients find that they like to wear headphones because it blocks out, like noise canceling headphones or just headphones in general, so that people that they don't want to hear don't speak to them. Don't listen to low vibrational music. Be careful what type of music you listen to. Because when you're clairaudient, what you hear programs the cells in your body, and it programs your kidneys, and your kidneys develop adrenal fatigue and exhaustion. So you can develop kidney stones. So you might become very emotional. So it's really important that when you are clairaudient, that you take a break from the world. If you could just sit in a room with silence, not listening to anything, it's the really best way to clear your clairaudience. So you do hear the voice, like sometimes I hear whispers, like when spirits are, when I go into a haunted house, I hear a lot of whispering because all the spirits start to talk to each other. Like, what is she doing here? Is she going to try to get rid of us? Like all these things. I hear like whispering, but primarily my spirit guides talk to me in my head. So I hear their voice in my head, or they'll play songs in my head to tell me a message. And also I've noticed a lot, like sometimes I try to watch a show like on Hulu or like Netflix, and I can't, because every single show that they have on there has music that is intended to make you depressed or make you upset or make you angry, and I cannot even do it. That's why I had to stop watching TV completely. Except for very, very specific things that I like to watch for educational purposes, because I just couldn't stand the music in the background. So music in the background of shows, of movies, can be very damaging to your kidneys as a clairaudient. Okay, so it's very, very important to learn to shield yourself. Honestly, as a psychic, I highly recommend anybody who's a psychic to learn to do Reiki, at least on themselves, to at least become a Reiki 1 practitioner. I'm a Reiki master. I have many different Reiki certifications. But I would highly recommend at least being a Reiki 1 practitioner, where you can learn to do Reiki on yourself, okay? Because if you are somebody who has psychic abilities, you need to have the ability to clear your own energy without relying always on somebody else to do it for you, because you're not always going to have somebody else available to do it for you. I might offer Reiki courses in the future. I haven't decided yet, because there's a lot of practices that I learned for myself to use on myself, not necessarily on other people. Like I learned Qigong and Reiki to use on myself, but I might offer some of those classes in the future. Okay. So yeah, so clairaudience, you got to be very careful with your kidneys, adrenal fatigue, listening to negatively toned conversations. You know, as fun as conspiracy theories can be, and most of the time they are true, don't listen to that kind of stuff, because you fall down this rabbit hole, okay? There is an amazing master that I learned Qigong from. I might share his information on my stories after this. He is just, I watched him for a really long time before I signed up for his Qigong class, and he's just awesome. He's just really awesome. I like the way he teaches. I like the information he shares. Obviously, there's other people out there that do it as well, but he's just the one that I resonated with. You can go with whatever teacher you resonate with. Okay, now we're going to move on to mediums, okay? People who are mediums. And then we're going to go back to spirit portals, caballos, and people who can get possessed by spirit. We're going to first go over mediums. Mental mediums. This is people who receive information from the dead through their mind. Again, can develop mental health issues. So it's really important for you to learn how to shield yourself so that when you don't want to receive this information, you can take a break from listening to the dead. You need to learn how to shield your mind, okay? So shielding exercises, something as simple as imagining a bubble of white light around you, or kind of imagining, for those of you who have seen SpongeBob, you know how the squirrel, she's constantly like has this suit on where she like has like a fishbowl over her head. So like imagining a fishbowl around you that keeps the voices of the dead out of your mind, or any information that they're sending you telepathically out of your mind. Okay, because when you're getting hit constantly and overwhelmed with psychic information from the dead, especially the dead that are trapped in like the fourth dimension, which is not very highly elevated, yes, Sandy the squirrel. One of the things that I learned in Qigong is when you visualize energy, you move energy. So it's really important that when you want to put a shield up, that you visualize a shield around you, that you visualize the shield, and you visualize what the shield is made of and what the shield is meant to do for you, because this will help control your energy, the energy in your environment. And also, same thing for mental mediums. I would recommend the same for mental mediums as claircognizant people, meaning don't overwhelm your mind. Don't overwhelm your mind with information. Don't overwhelm your mind with stimuli. Give yourself some time and meditate at least twice a day. Do breathing exercises to get the energy out of you, and do some Reiki on yourself, okay? And get some Reiki sessions done by other practitioners as well, because sometimes as a medium, and even as any type of psychic, I myself have a Reiki practitioner that I go to when I absolutely am like, I cannot do it for myself, I need to go to a Reiki practitioner. Or if I have an elder that does spiritual cleanses for me as well. If I don't feel like I can do it for myself, I go to my elder. So a lot of people that are psychic, or a lot of people that are spiritual workers, we get into this like egotistical belief that, oh, well, I can do that for myself, I don't need to pay somebody else to do it, or I don't need to do it with somebody else. And honestly, that's an egotistical belief. We all need one another, and in reality, instead of fighting with each other on the internet, we should be supporting each other and lifting each other up. And that's very important. So even as a psychic, I highly recommend, even though you can do some things for yourself, there are people out there that have clearer energy, that have more powerful energy, that have more developed abilities, and can help you better than you can help yourself sometimes. So I highly recommend that. Yeah, therapists go to therapists. Psychics should go to psychics that can help them, because just because you're a psychic doesn't mean that you'll get to see everything in your own life, okay? Sometimes when you're too biased, you're not able to see certain things, and that's when your spirit guides go, hey, you need to find somebody that you trust. I do a lot of readings for psychics because I primarily am a psychic for psychics. So I do a lot of readings for psychics and people who are spiritually gifted, because they're still either not developed enough to see what they need to see, or they're too biased to see an unbiased perspective of what is going on around them. I also do mediumship sessions where I do paranormal investigations for other people who are psychic as well, because they might be too biased to the energy in their environment, so they're not able to tell that there's a certain type of spirit or a certain type of entity in their house. So I do paranormal investigations for people who have psychic abilities and mediumship abilities too. So, and I have friends who are mediums, and I'll be like, hey, can you come into my place and make sure my energy is good? Because I'm pretty sure it's good, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Obviously, you can't trust every single psychic, but you have to realize not everybody is bad out there as a psychic. Just like you're not a bad person, right? So everybody can't say, hey, everybody's bad, so you're bad too, because everybody's bad, right? You can't really look at it that way. I would totally watch a Ghostbusters show with me and Sam. That's funny. Okay. Physical mediums. So physical mediums are people that can feel the dead and can also be jumped by the dead. That means that the dead will jump them to show them everything about their life, to walk them through their experience, through their death and all of that stuff, okay? Physical mediums can have a very hard time, especially if they are not protected properly. In my practice, there are certain jumping is not necessarily possession all the way. So I'm going to talk about possession in a minute, but jumping is really more where the spirit kind of walks through the person and leaves behind. It's like the physical medium is like a filter, and the spirit will walk. So when they jump a physical medium, the spirit walks through the body, and the body acts like as a filter and traps the information that the spirit wants to leave behind. So what happens over time, a physical medium can develop autoimmune conditions. So that means that your body is like, wait a minute, there's a foreign invader in here, and it starts to attack itself. And it's really because you are being jumped by spirits. You are being jumped by the dead. The dead are walking through you and leaving behind this residue of energy. So in my practice, we have certain ceremonies for people who are what we call muerteros, which are mediums. And the ceremonies center around protecting the vessel. Now, a lot of mediums choose to not do this ceremony because they think that being jumped makes them a better medium. But over time, it can cause you to become very, very ill and develop autoimmune system issues. So another way, so shielding, because a lot of physical mediums that I know, they leave their aura very open because they want to receive as much information as possible. But if you're doing this all the time, then you can develop a lot of autoimmune issues. So your thyroid, your stomach bacteria, your stomach bacteria can get thrown off. The balance in your gut can get thrown off. You can start developing issues where you can't eat anything. You have allergies to like everything. You can develop a lot of issues like that when you are a physical medium, especially when you go through life and you're like, I'm always sick, but I don't know why. The doctors can't figure out why. Most of the time is that you are a physical medium, but you don't know it. So you don't have it developed enough to figure out what the spirit is trying to tell you, but you're having the negative reactions to it. Also, physical mediums tend to have the weakest immune systems because of this, because they get constantly walked through by spirits that are lowered vibrational, that are not elevated enough yet, and that are in suffering. So a lot of the spirits that jump mediums are spirits in suffering. So it's not the same as like being mounted by a higher elevated spirit. It's usually, being a physical medium, you usually get walked through or jumped by spirits that are still in suffering, that are still trying to figure out what's going on, why are they stuck on earth, or who might be intentionally trying to cause harm. And a lot of people mistake these really negative spirits as for demons, when they're not demons. They're actually just negative spirits that like to cause suffering on the living. So like I said, it's very important to learn to shield yourself as a physical medium. However, if you do this for a living, and you can't shield yourself because that's how you receive the information, then what I would highly recommend is every single day before you go to sleep, because when you go to sleep, some of the things kind of cement in your body. So what you want to do is, before you go to sleep every single day, take a cleansing bath. Drink a tea that will cleanse your body, like with rosemary, basil, garlic. Drink that tea that will cleanse your body of negative energy. Do Reiki on yourself. That is a great way on a daily basis for a physical medium to get some relief and to prevent developing autoimmune condition issues. Also, physical mediums, if they go undeveloped and they're exposed a lot to people who have other psychic abilities, they can also have their energy drained by the people who are around them who have psychic abilities as well. Okay. We have also the other psychic ability that we have is called mental time traveling. Some people call it shamanic ability, but it's really time traveling. Shamanic abilities are kind of involved with this, but time traveling, where you have the ability to mentally travel through time. For example, myself, I do past life readings, so I have the ability to kind of mentally travel through time. You can develop a lot of headaches, a lot of mental exhaustion, burnout. So it's very important to take a break in between doing this. And also chocolate tends to help a lot with time traveling. If you're somebody who's a time traveler. I don't seem to find a lot of people who time travel mentally, but even if you're somebody who predicts the future, you're time traveling. So if you are time traveling, I highly recommend doing something like low sugar chocolate, dark chocolate. Tends to help with that, with kind of setting and grounding you. Yes, that can happen in dreams as well. So if you are a time traveler, I highly recommend consuming like dark chocolate, meditating, using the same shielding, energy healing techniques that I discussed before for empaths. So time travelers, you have to do things very similar to empaths. You have to learn how to shield your energy, clear your energy, and protect your energy. Well, shielding is protection, but you have to learn how to clear and protect and shield your energy. Okay. Spirit portals, like myself. So I'm what's called a spirit portal, which is a caballo de misterios. So I have the ability to allow higher elevated spirits to possess my body from the higher elevated spirits of the mysteries. I also have the ability to let certain angels channel through me. So as a spirit portal, as someone who gets mounted or possessed by higher level beings, it's very important for me to always have discernment as to what beings are trying to possess me. And it's also very important that if you are a spirit portal, that you go through ceremonies to close the ports that are associated with being possessed by lower level entities. Because when you are a spirit portal, you are open to both. You can be possessed by demonic entities, or you can be possessed by angel entities or higher vibrational energies. So when you are a spirit portal, we always recommend that you get the ceremonies done. At least in my tradition, different traditions are different. At least in my tradition, there are ceremonies to close. Yes, you can channel, I can channel benevolent angels without being possessed, because being possessed by an angel is very overwhelming. Their energy is too big for my physical body to sustain. So I usually channel them, whereas the energies of the misterios, even though their energies are big, the misterios usually only give you a portion of their energy to possess you. The orishas do similar things as well. The orishas will give you a portion of their energy, because the orishas are kind of like comparatively, the orishas, the loa, and kind of like the saints are kind of like on the same level to some degree. At least that's what we believe in my lineage. So they kind of do the same thing when they are going to possess you. They kind of give you just like a fractal of your energy, of their energy to possess your body, versus giving you their whole energy. Because if they give you your whole energy like an angel would, it would be too much. Yeah, one time I was channeling the goddess Isis and I almost died. She was very intense. I've also had an experience where I channeled the goddess Nyx, and she is very intense. And that was very, very, very hard on me. I had to take like a while to get over that. So when you are being mounted, if you are not being mounted by the spirits of light that are helpful. Now, when you're being mounted by spirits of light, they can heal your body while they're mounting you. You might feel very tired afterwards, and you might feel like sleeping. But most of the time, when you're being mounted, when you're a spirit portal for the beings of light, you feel recharged after they leave. You feel good after they leave. However, if you are not taking care of yourself, and you are you're allowing different energies to mount you that are not elevated spirits, that might be lower vibrational entities or whatever. The lower vibrational entities that like to possess, let's just say it, demons. They like to possess people. They will possess their devotees as well. What can happen is that person can develop psychosis and fragmenting of the mind. So your mind can fragment to the point where it is completely disconnected from reality, from this reality. So the spirits of light, they possess you and they heal your body, and they make sure that you are safely being possessed, that your body is safe. But even so, because the energy is so strong, you can develop heart issues. Okay, so as someone being possessed by spirit, whether light or dark, you can develop heart issues because your heart can't handle all of the electromagnetic energy that is coming in all the time. So that's when you do have to kind of take breaks from time to time. But if you are being possessed by lower level entities, because I have met people who are caballos for demons. They are. I have met them. I have had experiences with them where they were like, I thought I was doing something good and I allowed it to happen, and then now it's kind of gotten out of control. They develop mental illnesses because these lower level entities like to cause chaos. So they will develop severe mental illnesses. Okay, you can see it in their eyes. They're not connected with the reality at all. They develop things like schizophrenia, BPD, severe mental illnesses that can be very damaging to them. So that's like the more concerning thing is, I'm seeing a lot of teenagers that think it's cute to invoke demonic entities, to build relationship with demonic entities, because they're being promised the world and everything else. Especially on TikTok, I've recently come across a few teenagers that are like, oh, I work with this demon. And I'm just like, girl, you're about to lose your mind. You're about to lose your shit. You're about to lose your mind. Like that entity will only keep you good until it no longer has use for you, and then it will discard you. Unlike the beings of light, they always ask for permission. The beings of light always ask for permission, always take into account your health. They always take into account whether they even tell you when you can't handle it anymore. They're like, no, I'm not going to possess you because you can't handle it right now. Your body's not healthy enough. The beings of light will take care of you, whereas the beings of darkness will literally drain you dry, and they don't care, and then they will drive you crazy. Yeah, some spiritual workers tell you to work with neutral demons. I'm gonna tell you something. There is no such thing as a neutral demon. Even if they try to be neutral, they still have those lower level situations. Now, there are beings that people consider demons that are actually not demons. They're actually guardians of the underworld, such as Hades and Hela. They are actually not demons. They are guardians of the underworld. So they have to stay in the underworld to keep the demons at bay, but people confuse them for demons. Yeah, so you can develop psychosis from leaving portals open or from being overwhelmed by the information that you're receiving. Psychosis doesn't always come from working with demons. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you do work with demons, you will develop these things. Not that if you have psychosis, you're working with demons. That's not the same thing. It's not vice versa. It's I'm talking about if you are working with demons, you are going to develop psychosis, schizophrenia, all these kinds of issues. It's not if you develop schizophrenia, if you have spiritual psychosis, it doesn't mean that you're working with demons. That's not what I was talking about. I said if you are working with demons, this is what you could develop. However, if you have spiritual psychosis, there could be a variety of reasons why you have spiritual psychosis, not just demons, okay? So that's just to be clear. No, Hades is actually not a demon. Hades just doesn't really like the other gods very much. He likes to keep to himself. Hades is kind of like Severus Snape, where everybody thinks he's a bad guy, but he's actually the hero. I always put everything in terms of Harry Potter. So if you know Harry Potter, Severus Snape actually ended up being the hero, but everybody thought he was the villain. So yes, any of the gifts, if you don't have control over them, can develop into psychosis. So psychosis usually happens because you're too open, you're too overwhelmed. Especially if your gifts are up here in the crown, the third eye, the nose, and the throat. If your gifts are in the head, then that's when you can develop psychosis if you're too open and you are not controlling your energy properly. Meditation can help with clearing. You can also do meditation for shielding. It depends on what you're intending the meditation to help you with. Yes, it's all about balance. So a lot of the beings that are associated with the underworld, they're not necessarily, like the guardians of the underworld are not demons. They're actually they're gods. So the ones who are gods of the underworld, they are gods, but they happen to have to keep the demons trapped in the underworld. So that is usually beings like Hela, Hades, I'm trying to think of another underworld. Osiris, Osiris. You know, it's funny. Recently, I figured out that Seth is actually not a demon. He's considered a god of the underworld, even though he does some really bad stuff. Who else? Sorry, the weed whacker guy is outside. I have actually met people whose main guide is Lucifer, although Lucifer to me is a demon, but hey, whatever, to each their own. No, actually, I think it was her. I was reading a woman, and her significant other main guide was Lucifer, and I was like, yeah, this is not a good idea. Your significant other is literally the demon, a devil. So anyway, many people who can channel or spirit portal must have very little personal relationships usually, because they absorb information from the environment. Empaths, channelers, spirit portals have to be very careful with the type of personal relationships that you have, what people have access to, what types of people have access to you, because it can pollute your energy and make you very overwhelmed. Well, in that case, I didn't necessarily connect with Lucifer to give them information. To give her information, I let Archangel Michael tell me what Lucifer had to say. But, you know, there are people who work with Lucifer. There are people who work with different entities. So when you are a spirit portal, a channel, or an empath, having a lot of alone time is important. Also, having time with people that do make you feel good is also very important. So being around family members and friends that do bring positive energy into your life is very important. So don't just like isolate yourself. Find people that you feel safe with. Find people that you feel comfortable with. Find people that you feel happy around. You know, people that just ground you. It's really important to do that. I have a friend who's like an earth sign, and she's very grounding. So find people that are very grounding, because that's really great for people that are spirit portals, empaths, and channelers. Okay? Yeah, praise to the underworld gods that protect us from all the things we don't understand. Yeah. So, it really depends on type of being. Spirit channeling, spirit possession is a whole other beast compared to just having certain psychic abilities like claircognizance, clairvoyance, clear smelling, psychometry, empathy, clairaudience. Those are all things that are kind of more, you're more on this, in this side of the veil, on the physical side of the veil with these kinds of gifts. When you are a spirit portal, you're kind of in between the two sides of the veil. When you're a demon channel or a demon portal, you're kind of in the underworld all the time, and that can be really damaging to your health. When you are somebody who is like a shaman, who is a traveler, you are in between the two worlds a lot in multiple different dimensions. So it's very important to take the time to ground yourself and to do some healing on yourself. Gede are the gatekeepers of the cemetery. So Gede tend to be the ones that take care of the graves. They take care of the graves in the spiritual world. They take care of transporting people from the dead, from the life to the dead. They tend to pick up. So usually you get picked up by, here's how it works, okay? If you are of a particular religion, you usually get picked up by a being from that religion because it will make you feel more comfortable. So, for example, if you believed in Egyptian gods, you will get picked up by Anubis because it makes you feel more comfortable. If you are somebody who believed in the Gede, you'll get picked up by one of the Gede because it makes you feel more comfortable. So each pantheon has certain people that they are assigned to. That's why I said, like, the Christian religion is not for everybody, because not every single person is meant to be Christian. Not every single person is meant to be Islamic. Not every single person is meant to be a voodoo sant. Not every single person is meant to be a Jew or a Hindu or, you know, an Egyptian practitioner or a Norse practitioner or whatever practice, or Ifa or Santeria. There are certain beings that you are assigned to, who you are supposed to work with and worship during your life. And then when you die, one of them will come and pick you up. Okay? So to make the transition more comfortable for you. So like I said, like if you believed in Anubis, or your family believed in Anubis for a really long time, Anubis might come and pick you up if you have Egyptian heritage, right? If your family believed in angels, then one of the angels, Archangel Azrael, usually will come, the angel of death, and pick you up. If you are a voodoo sant and you believe in the Gede and you honor the Gede throughout your life, one of the Gede will come and pick you up. So they are the beings that help the transition of the dead over. Yes, Santeria is different from the 21 divisions. There's somebody on TikTok spreading the misinformation that 21 divisions is Dominican Santeria, and it's not. 21 divisions is voodoo, which works with the Loa and the Misterios, okay, of the 21 divisions, the mysteries of the 21 divisions. There are some lineages that work with the Orishas inside the 21 divisions, but that's usually considered like Sansei, or considered other forms of 21 divisions. But 21 divisions was originally voodoo and the indigenous practices. 21 divisions was originally Dominican voodoo and hoodoo. Okay, so the indigenous practices of the island and the voodoo practices of the island. Santeria is focused on, like Cuban Santeria is focused on the Orisha. And the Orisha are different from the Loa. The Loa come from places like the Congo, primarily Benin, which used to be Dahomey, which Metesli Frida is from Dahomey. Primarily Dahomey, which is now present day Benin. So the Loa come from there, whereas and from like North Nigeria, whereas the Orisha come from the Yoruba tribe. So it's kind of like trying to say that like the Navajo people and the Arawak worship the same gods. They didn't. They worshiped different beings. So similarly, if you are practicing Santeria, you are usually worshiping or honoring the Orisha. If you are practicing 21 divisions, you are usually working with the Loa, which are kind of like the saints of voodoo. Okay? That is the difference. And people who don't know that will spread misinformation on the internet. And unfortunately, they get listened to because they spread so much BS. And they get tons of followers for spreading BS that is not even real. Because they don't actually know what they're talking about. I grew up in this, and I've spoken to many different elders of different practices. Ifa, Santeria, Regla de Ocha, Candomblé, I believe, Brazilian Candomblé, primarily work with the Orisha, 21 divisions, Haitian Voodoo, even 21 divisions of Sanse, which is Puerto Rican Voodoo, New Orleans Voodoo, they work with the Loa, okay? So that is the African Voodoo work with the Loa spirits. Now, another thing too that a lot of people don't know is that Loa also have mermaids, dwarfs, gnomes. We have Loa, which are also mermaids, gnomes, dwarfs, leprechauns. We have Loa, which are leprechauns, believe it or not. Okay? So, there are many, and also in the 21 divisions, we also practice spiritism, which means that we believe, we don't just communicate with the Loa, but we also communicate with the spirits of the land, similar to how the Arawak Taino Indians of Dominican Republic used to communicate with the spirits of the land, such as like the tree spirits like Grambawa, and the snake spirits, and the any animal spirits, any crystal spirits, because we used to use crystals. Our ancestors of the Taino Arawak people, we used to use crystals in our healing, especially black obsidian. Black obsidian was used for surgeries because it was believed to absorb negative energy. So it was used for surgery, so that when a surgery was done, the negative energy wouldn't enter the body, because it was believed that when you, Haiti and Dominican Republic used to be one island known as La Quisqueya. So whether you're Haitian or whether you're Dominican, you're family. This Dominican versus Haitian thing was the colonists, the people who colonized the island, were the ones who started to turn us against each other. But whether you're Haitian or whether you're Dominican, you are a Quisqueyan and you are family. So you are no better than, as a Dominican, you're no better than a Haitian. As a Haitian, you're no worse or no better than a Dominican. We are family, and we have to stop that. We have to stop that shit, because the hatred that has spread because of the colonizers who destroyed and killed our ancestors. And the bettering the race was a propaganda that was put out by racist, misogynistic people like Trujillo, who was a dictator in Dominican Republic, who wanted to better the race, who was spreading this better the race by becoming whiter will make you better. And that's complete BS. Everybody in the Caribbean is pretty much related to each other. If you're Puerto Rican, if you're Dominican, if you're Haitian, we're all family. We were taught to hate each other so that we could be weak. The reason why the Dominicans were taught to hate the Haitians was because the Haitians had a revolution and freed themselves from the French. And the Spaniards didn't want the Dominicans to figure out that they could free themselves from slavery, and free themselves from the tyranny of the Spaniard kingdom. So they created a propaganda campaign to turn the Dominicans against the Haitians. And that's the reason why we have the issues we have. Yes, voodoo helped the Haitians liberate themselves because Ezeli Danto helped them liberate themselves. Yes, the racism between Haiti and DR is still happening because of the colonizers and the children and the aunts and the descendants of colonizers who are continuing to repeat the same BS that their racist ancestors created. You have to remember, for a lot of the African Americans that don't realize this, the islands of the Caribbean were colonized before were enslaved and colonized before the Americas were. So we have been dealing with racism and all that kind of stuff, and it's been ingrained in our blood even way before the African Americans experienced it in the south of this country. So that is the reason why a lot of people who are Black Dominicans don't want to acknowledge the fact that they're Black. They're like, they'll fight with you and just be like, I'm not Black, I'm Dominican. Yes, you are Black, because they were programmed that being Black was a bad thing in Dominican Republic. We were programmed to believe this by the colonizers of the island. And we were also programmed to believe that we were no longer Taino, and programmed to believe that the Arawak Taino people were extinct, and when they weren't. A lot of the Arawak Taino people hid in the mountains of Jarabacoa to try to get away from the colonizers and to try to preserve the Taino culture. Okay, so unfortunately, so the 21 divisions is the 21 divisions is an effort to try to unite and to preserve the practices of the Arawak and the African people. And it was hidden under the Catholic saints because that was what was acceptable by the colonizers. Yes, a lot of the Arawak Taino people went into Haiti as well, because the Taino people had many sections of their tribes throughout Haiti, Dominican Republic, and South Florida, and Puerto Rico, and some in Cuba. Haitian voodoo is less hidden because Haitian voodoo was not as, it wasn't really the Catholics that went too much into Haiti. It was a lot more of like the Protestant church that went into Haiti to try to convert Haitians into Christianity. So Haitian voodoo is less hidden because of that. Because a lot of the people who are Christian in Haiti were converted out of like fear of going to hell rather than force, whereas the people in Dominican Republic were converted through force. Like if you didn't become Catholic, you could lose your life. Similar to like a lot of the natives here in St. Augustine, a lot of the native tribes here, like the Timucua, they were forced to they were basically killed by the Spaniards and forced to convert into Catholicism or lose their lives. Thank you. I appreciate it. God bless me. Some voodoo saints are also Freemasons because Freemasonry incorporated some of the Egyptian beliefs, which some Egyptian practices are also voodoo. I don't really dive deep into the Freemasonry thing, but Freemasonry also has a lot of racism in it as well. So in my understanding, I'm not an expert on Freemasonry, but in my understanding, Freemasonry is more Luciferianism, I believe, but I don't quote me on that because like I said, I'm not an expert in Freemasonry. I mean, like, the Christians have done so much to try to demonize our practices because they have white superiority complex where they think their practice is better than everybody else's, even though the face of their religion is supposed to look more like me. Is supposed to be somebody who has curly hair like wool and, you know, darker skin because Jesus was from the Middle East, but they whitewashed him in the Catholic Church. They whitewashed him in Italy. And then you have to realize there's a lot of history behind the whitewashing of Jesus as well. The whitewashing of Jesus happened because Italians were very racist against black people, because there was a history of these Vikings that were black that came into Sicily and raped all the women, and then they started having mixed children. So in order to differentiate the children of the that were products of the rape, they also started this campaign of like separating the white and the colored people in Italy. So that is something that goes back in their history. You got to kind of study the history of Italy, and you have to realize Italy is the home of the Vatican, which is the home of the Catholic faith, right? So they had to whitewash Jesus to make all the white people follow him, and then the white people were like, oh yeah, we're superior because our God is white, and our God, you know, the God, the Messiah is white, so let's go and conquer everybody else who doesn't look like us because we have to be superior, we have to know better. It's kind of like whenever a white person goes to Dominican Republic and they see things being done differently and they're like, oh, why don't they do this? That is like a subconscious superiority thing that a lot of Americans carry and a lot of Europeans carry, where it's like they see a native culture and they're like, oh, but my way would be better, instead of just appreciating the culture for what it is. A lot of us who have like American or like European blood have this like subconscious thing where we think that our way is better than everybody else's way. To my understanding, Freemasons have both dark and light followings. Like I said, I'm not an expert in Freemasonry. If you want to learn about Freemasonry, go and talk to a Freemason and read about Freemasonry. To my understanding, from the experience I have had with Freemasonry, at least in New York, the Freemasons in New York were extremely racist, in my opinion. A lot of like, you have different sectors of Freemasons. You have Freemasons that are in New York, you have Freemasons that are in the South, you have Freemasons that are in the Caribbean, and depending on what they believe, they have, you know, they worship different things. So I'm not a Freemason. For example, I've met people who were like, who descended from the KKK, who were also Freemasons. They were like part of the KKK, but also Freemasons. So it really depends on what Freemason branch you are part of. And then the Freemasons have this sector that I believe it's called the Rainbow Girls, which is something that somebody that I used to be friends with was part of that. And then I came to find out that they did a lot of racist stuff. And I was like, yeah, we're not going to be friends anymore. Yeah, not all Freemasons are bad, but then you also have Freemasons that do practice. It's kind of like the Kabbalah, right? Kabbalistic practices. You have people who work with the angels, and then you have people who work with the demons. So what type of Freemason are you talking about? Are you talking about the Freemason that works with the light, or are you talking about Freemasons that work with the dark? So you have Freemasonry in different sectors of Freemasonry. It's taught. Racism is taught. Racism is taught, for sure. Racism and bigotry are taught. We are souls that incarnate free of prejudice, and then we are taught prejudice, and then our soul will carry that on until we purge it from ourselves, which is why a lot of racist people reincarnate as Black people, so that they have to learn their lesson. If you want to learn about reincarnation, you can look at my video from last night. We talked about reincarnation and how, you reincarnate based on certain lessons that you need to learn. Yeah, some Freemason places will incorporate a lot of Hermetic practices, which are not demonic. But some Freemasons will incorporate things that have to do with the actual demons of the Kabbalah. Yeah, Hermetic magic is basically just Egyptian magic. That's not in itself evil. But even in Egyptian magic, you have dark and light, right? You have the people who work with Seth, who are like considered more like the darker people, the people who work with more like harmful magic, and then you have the people who work with like the light beings of the Hermetic gods, which are like Osiris, Isis, that kind of stuff. Everything has light and dark. There's people who are Christian and all they do is curse other people. So they're in themselves demonic, but they pretend to be Christian. Yeah, so you might, because of the energy blast recently, you might feel more tired than usual, so I highly recommend resting. Chaos magic is basically when people try to use the darkness to deal with certain situations. Chaos magic is exactly what it says. It's chaos magic. So Kabbalah is similar. Kabbalah is basically the Jewish version of voodoo. It's not voodoo. It's the Jewish version. It's kind of like the Jewish version of voodoo. Because the Kabbalah works with the angel energies at different levels. So Kabbalah really is more involved with, I would say Kabbalah is more similar to hoodoo than it is to voodoo. But voodoo doesn't mean working with spirits. So people in Kabbalistic practices tend to work with either the demonic entities of the Jewish faith, or they work with the angel entities. Usually Kabbalah with a K is like the angel entities, and to my understanding, Kabbalah with a C is like the demonic entities. But I'm not an expert in the Kabbalah. You have to be initiated to work the Kabbalah. I work with the angels in voodoo. I don't work with the angels in the Kabbalah way. So it is considered high magic, however. It is part of the high magic realm. I was trained in high magic, but in a different aspect of high magic, not the Kabbalah. Kabbalah is just one of the high magic practices. Meaning, what they mean by high magic is that with folk magic, for example, is very like loosely thrown together. In high magic, you have to do rituals by a certain time, a certain astrological alignment. You have to do certain ceremonies. You have to wear certain things. You have to use certain plants, certain crystals. You have to, like, it's kind of very ritualistic. So high magic is very ritualistic versus and very specific versus like folk magic, which is where it's more thrown together. Yeah, high magic is like by the book to the T. If you, certain angels will only work with you if you do only high magic, where you do like magic by the T. Some archangels most archangels will work with you, or will help you even if you're not doing a certain ritual a certain way. But some angels are big sticklers for like the rules, and they're like, no, you have to follow this path, this rule, and this ritual if you want to contact me. So yeah. So Kabbalah is more like Jewish mysticism. Lighting a candle with Archangel Michael's seal on it is not high magic on its own. It is part of high magic, but it's not high magic completely. That's why unless you're a practitioner of high magic, you won't really understand the full aspect of high magic. I teach about this in my course. He says, I don't understand why they have to blow leaves around. It's like the biggest waste of energy. So yeah, so with high magic, it took me a long time to learn high magic. High magic takes years to learn. I'm still learning high magic because there are certain rituals. It's like a completely different language to magic. Usually people will start at like natural magic, witchcraft, folk magic. You know, there's voodoo magic because 21 divisions. My lineage is 21 divisions of white magic, which is healing magic. So there's voodoo magic, and then there's hoodoo magic, and then there's, and then there's highly ritualistic high magic. So high magic takes a really long time to learn, and if you rush it, you can fuck things up really badly for yourself. So I don't recommend anybody doing high magic unless they have learned it really well. Now, if you buy something from someone that really practices high magic and really knows high magic, you can use that spell, right? But you shouldn't really try doing it yourself without proper training. Yes, the energy blast. Yes, high magic alchemy is part of high magic. Yes. But also people who practice high magic are not really allowed to talk a lot about what goes on in high magic as well. Where it's similar to being initiated in voodoo. When you are taught high magic, you are not allowed to really talk a lot about it. So I only teach a little bit of it when I'm allowed to teach about it, but that's about it. And then, there's different types of magic. There's Hermetic magic. There's Norse magic, which is known as Seder. So there's many different types of magical practices. All right, everyone. I'm going to go now. I've been on here for a while. So I just wanted to come on and talk about how being psychic can affect your health and how to take care of yourself. Archangel Raphael really wanted me to share that information with you today. If I'm able to save this, I will definitely post it on my YouTube channel. And I would highly recommend subscribing to my YouTube channel, liking the video. If you like these videos, I'll make more of these types of videos. Leave a comment below if you want to know anything. Also, I highly suggest never to receive any kind of messages from anybody that is pretending to be me. Make sure that you always go to my website. I will never contact you first to book any kind of reading or session with me. So I would highly recommend only ever communicating with my website. In order to get in contact with me, the only way to get in contact with me is to book a reading or a consultation through my website. Or when I go live, then you can jump on and ask a question, and if I have time, I will answer your question. However, if it's something personal, I will not answer it in my lives. So I will try to save this, and if you just jumped on, you can catch the replay. We do have 3 community rituals happening this month. We have the Archangel Michael Protection Ritual, Believer-Can Protection Ritual. We have the Maitresili Frida Self-Love Ritual. Some people may know Maitresili Frida as the Virgin of Sorrows, but she's kind of the opposite of that. And we also have a Saint Expedite ritual, petition ritual. Saint Expedite Gedelimbo actually asked me to make this one, even though I was not going to anymore. But he said he wanted it done, so I did it. So we have a community ritual for if you want to ask Gedelimbo or Saint Expedite to help you with something specifically related to money or your career. I would highly recommend that. Many blessings to you all, and take care of yourselves.